We're live. Welcome, Jess.
Yay!
Yay,
Thank
thanks for joining
you.
me. Yeah. Okay, so I have Jess Neary here with me today, and we're going to talk about a few different things. We're going to talk about Celtic rituals, pagan rituals, living seasonally, lunar cycles, and we're going to give a few tips for people who are interested in getting started with practicing these kinds of rituals in their own life and connecting more to nature. We're going to give you some of our pro tips now that we've both been diving into this world a little bit. We both bring slightly different perspective, which I'm so excited to talk to Jess today because she's done a lot of the digging and researching to uncover some more historical and more Celtic focused rituals, and I think that's the way you'd say that, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
And
totally. Yep.
I just kind of stumbled into the practice myself because I wanted to explore like being a witch. So I
Yes.
think it'll be an interesting conversation. Great. So why don't we
Yay.
get started by, Jess, if you want to just share a little bit about how you got interested in exploring this world of like Celtic and pagan rituals and what drew you to it.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I would say I similarly of the witchy stuff. I think my first thing was listening to a podcast called The Witch Wave. And that just kind of blew my mind of like, oh my gosh, there's this whole world out there of feminine empowerment and lunar cycles and all this stuff. And so from there, I just started to dig into it. And as I was kind of like starting to like dip my toe into rituals, I was like, what would what are like the ancient ways that people would have celebrated the solstice or one of the Celtic holidays? And so I was like, I wanted authenticity, I guess, was the biggest thing. And so as I was doing the witchy stuff, then I started to just do more history oriented of where did this stuff come from and why. And that's when I discovered the Celtic angle of it, which was like so freaking cool to me because it's so much about the sovereignty of the land and how to live in reciprocity with the land. So all of the cycles and seasons, and so much of their spirituality was based on the goddess. And I think that just ties into our modern witchcraft movement in so many ways. But it was like this historical basis that tied to my own ancestry of like, here's what, a couple thousand years ago, people in my family might have been doing. And I just thought that was freaking awesome. So then I started doing more rituals based on that and the fire festivals. And that led to today of writing on Substack about it. So it's been really cool journey to just feel like I'm deeply connected in like a spiritual way, I guess is how I came around to it.
Yeah, that's really cool. I love the authenticity you're naming and bringing it back to your own personal roots. I think that's a really cool lens that you've looked through, and also the historical aspect, because the more I've learned about the pagan calendar and timelines and rituals, it's like it lines up with a lot of modern day holidays, especially
Yeah,
Christian holidays. So that's interesting. And
totally.
I know there's a whole history behind that, which we might not dive into today, but I think
Yeah.
it's so fascinating that we're still practicing some of these things, even if you don't realize that you are. Easter and
Yeah,
Christmas come to
exactly.
mind around the spring equinox and the winter solstice in particular.
Yep, absolutely. Some of my first stories that I did on Substack were going into research that stuff because I wanted to know that. And yeah, it's such a journey for organized religion because as they were converting these pagan cultures, it was very simple to say like, well, look, it's pretty similar to what you're already doing. It's just with like a different deity in a lot of ways. So yes, that can be a whole conversation in itself too.
Yeah, that's cool. Um, and also the female empowerment aspect of like there's this whole modern movement of witchiness, witchcraft, and what that looks like. I think witches have gotten a really bad name. They've been demonized by religions, and I think you and I've discussed like we're going to maybe do another collaboration in the future, maybe in October, about the reclamation
Yeah.
of the witch, which I am so excited. I've been noodling on that for years because for me, and
Yeah.
I haven't caveat that I haven't dived into all the history of it like in depth, but um it it upsets me that women who were empowered, who were connected to the earth, who were maybe herbalists and making herbal tinctures and things like that, like were accused of doing something evil. When for me, that
Mhm.
feels like a deep connection to divinity. And witches have been, I mean, it was a way, calling a woman a witch was a way to have a woman wind up dead either way, because it's like
Yep.
either she's a witch and you burn her at the stake, or you drop her in the water and see if she floats and she drowns. Like, so it was a lose-lose for a woman if she got accused of being a witch. And that's carried through into modern day culture, where calling a woman a witch is still like such a derogatory thing. So I love that there's this
Yeah.
younger movement happening about reclaiming that word and what that means. And I especially love the connection to nature and like following seasonal
Yeah.
cycles.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I've been thinking about this too a lot because I think it's so specifically American too, because the Salem witch trials live so consciously in our culture. It just seems like that's such a an embodiment of persecution of women and how we did this. And so I think especially us owning that term again and coming back around, it's like even if witchcraft is different from what the ancient people might have done, I still think it's like the container as to which we can say our intuition matters, our energy matters, how we connect to the moon phases and nature is all real. And it's not something that you can push down anymore or subjugate us with. So, yeah, I mean, I just read a book that was about the, what is it? It was the, um, I forget the term, but it was people that were the herbalists and the healers, and there was men and women. But it was the fact that, especially as medical practices was male dominated, came around, then women that were healers that just lived in their hut that people would come to, all of a sudden became persecuted. So, yeah, I mean, I think if we do a collaboration on, especially around Halloween and all of the things that come with being connected to our intuition, because the Celtic world, Samhain was this big thinning of the veil. And so, especially witchcraft and all the things that come with our modern holiday is so deeply connected to the intuition of we spirits are around us and how we connect to the natural world in a way that is not described by science, I guess, in the same way that we do today, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. And I almost feel like science is kind of starting to intersect with these things, but yeah, it's considered woo woo.
Yeah,
And yet, women, hospitals recognize that there's going to be more deliveries of babies around the full moon. So it's like these things
yes,
impact us. There's more crime that happens around the full moon. So yeah, these things
totally.
impact us whether we recognize it or not. I
Yeah.
want to share a little bit about like what brought me to these practices. And I was thinking about it preparing for this conversation, and I can't remember the seed that started it. I just know that in 2020, during the pandemic, I started hosting Zoom moon circles for women.
Oh,
I
cool.
I think it's because I bought a book called Moon Spells, and it was all about setting
Mm,
intentions around the lunar cycle. And I really loved the ritual of it and the magic, because I really do think that we are magical as humans. Like, we have this divine gift of creating with our word what we declare, what we intend. Like, that's what everything
mhm.
starts with. And so I loved the idea of pairing it with lunar cycles because it was witchy. And I used to make fun of people that had crystals, but now I have like a whole altar with like crystals on it, and all these
You're like, it
smoking,
works.
yeah, incense and smoke cleansing and all that stuff. Yeah, so I love practicing all of that, and it's just expanded over time. I went to moon circles in person in Boulder with another person, coach, and that was really fun to connect with women. I started to recognize the power of gathering in circles of women,
Mm,
which in a past life of mine, like I definitely gravitated more towards mixed groups, but I started to want to be around women more. Which, as a side note, and I'll link this in the show notes, there's a book that I'm reading right now called The Heroine's Journey that talks about this, like when women
ooh,
start
nice.
to come out of their conditioned desires for like external success, corporate success. they start to descend into themselves and connect more with nature and lunar cycles and things like that in women. So
Oh my gosh.
it's a great book. I'll link
Yeah,
it.
please link that. That sounds
Yeah.
awesome. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. Yeah, I think it's interesting. It just feels like there's this, I mean, maybe COVID was kind of an impetus because I think I really started to dig in at that time too. But just this gathering and this, I think even on Substack, you see all of these women that are talking about this now in their own flavor of wherever they come from for it. But I think, yeah, the gathering of our energy, the power of that, of people kind of waking up to this different way that we can live our lives that isn't patriarchal or it isn't the corporate world. And it just seems like it's growing and growing even more. So, yeah, I mean, the moon is such a feminine symbol that I think even cycle syncing,
Mm.
that's how I started doing that too. And I've even started doing workouts based on, where I'm at and, look at the moon cycle to see where I'm synced up. And it's just like the fact that we didn't live our lives like this and we've been so disconnected for so long still baffles me.
Yeah, for sure. And now that you talk about cycle syncing, that might have been the original seed for me because I
Yeah.
heard about cycle syncing and like seed cycling, which for those of you who aren't familiar, cycle syncing is about syncing your lifestyle, whether that's diet, movement, work, to the phases of your menstrual cycle, which also mirrors the lunar cycle. And
Yep.
I learned a fact that like if you spend more time outside, that you would sync up with your menstrual cycle would sync up with the moon cycle. And I thought that was so cool. So I
Really?
I started paying attention to the lunar cycle because of that. Because it was more of like a holistic nutrition thing. And then yeah,
Yeah,
so I think that was the original thread. So thanks for saying that. Um,
for
yeah, it's
sure. That's so cool. I didn't know being outside would actually, like, you just need to like soak up literally the moon and then your
yeah,
cycle
moonbathing.
actually
Yeah.
connects. Yes. Oh my
Moonbathing, and I think
gosh.
even just paying attention to the cycle has you sync up a little
Yeah,
bit. Yeah, so if
totally.
you want to sync your cycles with the moon, start spending some more time outside. Pay attention to we just had a new moon last night, so in 2 weeks we'll have a
Yeah.
full moon, and you can do some moon bathing. Get
And there
yourself
was the
fine.
eclipse also.
Oh
Was
yes,
do you know anything about like the cycle syncing and moon phases of like with eclipses specifically? I was actually curious about that. If that's
so
beyond
I
like the
I don't know from like a larger general perspective. I just know because I always write about where we are in the moon cycle. Whenever I post, I include a moon update and a seasonal update, and I host moon circles in my small group Coven. So I in preparing for that. I knew we had a solar eclipse. I knew that the energy of that eclipse was about like shedding and releasing. Like normally on new moons, you want to be planting new seeds or planting intentions. But for
Yep,
solar eclipses, if there's an eclipse happening, you want to like release or shed first before you plant, because it's a really
gotcha.
potent, energetically potent time to release. So yesterday's solar eclipse happened at, I think it was 12:37 p.m. Central Time, and the astrology with it. And I'm not an astrology expert. This is just stuff that I look up, research in Vedic astrology system, which is what I've been taught to follow. It was, I forget the name of the Vedic system that it was in, but it was about the snake and shedding skin. So
Oh,
you want to be
okay.
shedding skin.
Nice.
Yeah, and it was a new moon in Cancer. I know that as well.
Yeah, and it was like I heard like don't do anything. Like this should be about releasing and it's like quiet and it's not big energy. It's supposed to be quiet, especially with a new
Yeah.
moon as well, I would
Yeah, and
imagine.
I
It makes
noticed
sense.
experientially, both for myself and with the women, like the women who were on my new moon circle last night, my sisters. It's been feeling kind of like people have been feeling down or heavy, which I don't think is
Yeah.
abnormal. I mean, that's a lot of energy. So if you're feeling down right now, that's okay. Just blame it on the solar eclipse.
Yesterday I totally did. I was like, why am I feeling like this? This feels really odd. So
Yeah,
that's cool. That's
yeah.
great.
I know it's always nice when the
That's something
astrology
we've talked
explains your feelings.
you're like, thank you, finally, somebody gets me. But yeah, I was gonna say I that's something that I want to dig into related to Celtic stuff as well. And that's something I don't know if it's related necessarily to Samhain, but it's like uh, the Celts they believe that the day began at sunset. And so they were
Hmm.
very lunar oriented. They have one of their artifacts was a moon calendar that tracked 5 years worth of moon phases. And it had solar events in it as well. But I think it was so cool. And I just read this book about Celtic seership, and they had this entire program where, it's kind of like druids and poets, which is like their, like learning to be spiritual people essentially. They would um, do their practices completely in the dark. And so, like, the nighttime and the moon phases was very connected to that. And I want to dig into it more. But I think it's just so cool that even their culture was very oriented around the darkness and just like, that the day began at sunset. And obviously, they were tracking their lives around the moon. And it's just cool to imagine a culture just oriented toward that related to
Yeah,
our modern day as well.
that's so cool. I've never heard that. And I guess it makes sense, right? Like if you were existing back then, the sun pretty much always looks the same. Maybe it's,
Hmm.
different position in the sky, but the moon you can clearly see a difference every night of whether it's
Yep.
waxing or waning, like you can see. So it makes sense that they would use that as like a calendar system.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I even read a book once where it was like, women would track their period based on the moon because you'd be like, oh, it's a full moon. Like my period's going to be in a couple weeks or whatever it looks like.
Yeah.
So it's like it makes so much more sense, just
Yeah.
in a natural way.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah,
So tell me
yeah.
about some of the ways that you practice your pagan rituals, Celtic rituals in your day-to-day life.
For sure. So I was gonna say it's cool because when you look at the moon phases, it's kind of like your regular monthly intention setting, things like that. I'd say the Celtic festivals are what I usually do my own practices around, and that's like these bigger events, kind of like the solstices and equinoxes, but like Imbolc is February 1st. And so that's the intention setting for the year that I use. So it means in the belly, it's a lot about the lambing season. And so all of the sheep would be pregnant. So it's kind of
Mm.
like you're setting your seed for the year and things are about to start growing, but it's still very quiet because it's February. So that's the time where I like to think of it as the spark of beginning your year for like those broader intentions. And I did a few posts about the legends associated with that. There's a goddess named Bridget that a lot of people worship, and there's actually people in Ireland go to this site and for Imbolc specifically and worship her, which is really cool. So there's lots more info about that as well. Um, then there's Beltane, which is May 1st, and that's this big fiery holiday. So that's kind of the embodiment, almost like if I would say like the full moon, where you're so much about the cleansing. There's fire to actually cleanse the cattle, was what they traditionally did. But it's all about you clearing yourself to be preparing yourself for the year, especially the planting season. So that's how they were connected seasonally. It was also, which I love, a time when the king of Ireland would be accepted by the goddess again. So it was almost like a reestablishing of him as the leader because the goddess accepts him as the rightful leader. So again, having that reciprocal relationship with the land around you. Then there's Lunasa, which just happened, and that's like this big gathering. So I would love to eventually like have like a gathering of my own of bringing people together for that. But it's a big celebratory time where the summer season is waning. You're kind of letting go. You're acknowledging what has happened in the year thus far, and then Samhain is like their new year actually, where it's about the quiet time. It's the end of the harvest season, and it's about reflecting and quiet, and also connecting to your ancestors in the same way. So I guess that was more like the broader festivals that I celebrate. And then I'm kind of quiet in terms of what I do personally. I do a lot of journaling. I actually have like exercise workouts that I do that are based on the days, and like I kind
Hmm.
of do celebratory meals that I cook specific things that would have been traditionally had at the time. So yeah, it just kind of depends on my energy that I'm feeling for it as well, as a solo practitioner, I guess you'd say.
Yeah, that's super cool. And I love it's so interesting that they're the in bulk is February 1st, right?
Yep,
The Lunar New
exactly.
Year in Asian cultures is right around that time too, which is an
Oh yeah.
intention setting time. So it's
Yep,
interesting that like across cultures that it's like a similar time frame. I stopped
yep.
celebrating like intention setting on New Year's Eve for our
Yeah.
Gregorian calendar, and I started doing my intention stuff around Lunar New Year a few years ago, just because I'm more oriented to the moon. But
That's
yeah, that and
awesome.
also it's so funny hearing you enunciate the Celtic festival names, because I know that Gaelic is a language that makes no sense in terms of
Oh my God.
pronunciation. And so
Yeah.
I've been saying that. I mean, I think I got Imbolc, but I was saying in my head Samhain for the October.
Oh, I did that. I did that for a long time, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
I'm
I
half
finally
Irish,
asked.
so we have like a lot of Irish connection in our family, and like seeing Gaelic words, I'm like, this doesn't even Gaelic names like Siobhan and
Oh yeah,
uh
Aoife, which is like
Saoirse, like yeah,
Aiofe. Yeah. I'm constantly worried because in my podcast, I have sometimes like referenced the names and I'm so nervous because they don't make
yeah,
any sense at all. And it's just
right,
like, I
yeah.
don't want
The
to mess this up.
pronunciation makes no sense, which I feel like is
Yep.
like very Irish. It's like
Yes.
let's
Yeah,
change.
exactly. Yep. I love
Um,
that I actually wrote a post about like not celebrating New Year, like or January 1st in the same way. Cause I agree. It's like, that's supposed to be the quiet time. That's supposed to be kind of the
right,
wintering, hibernating
right,
period of life, and we're not
yes.
supposed to be aggressively saying here's all the shit I'm going to do for the year. Like that's not the
Right.
point. So
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah, and I moved
it's
away from resolutions to intentions as well. Usually I pick a word of the year instead, because resolutions feel very like discipline and willpower
yeah,
oriented, which is not my cup of tea anymore.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, like you said, people will set these resolutions, and like January is the most busy time of the year at the gym, and
yep,
when we're supposed to be hibernating and turning inward. Yeah.
yeah. I think that's such a feminine aspect as well, because you can look at, it's again, the lunar cycles are just like a smaller version of the year cycle of being okay to rest, as like the new moon of saying this is okay, like it's all right to not be productive, and like there are
Right.
times where you will be better as a person and more productive as a human being if you allow yourself that fallow time in
Yes.
between. And I think a lot of people are realizing that we can't just constantly push every
Right.
day for the rest of our lives.
Yes, we are cyclical beings, and I think women's bodies are such leaders for us in that if we follow our menstrual cycles, if we follow that there's a time to be extroverted and flirtatious and connect with people and outwardly
Yep.
presenting, and then there's a time to be resting and reflecting and feeling your feelings. And so I think it's really cool how parallel the seasonal cycle is with the lunar cycle and with the menstrual cycle. And I think
Yeah.
it's important to take our cues from that. Like those are teachers for us of how to live in cyclical bodies. Because even for men
Yeah.
who don't have a menstrual cycle, they're still cyclical beings like the rest of us. So
Absolutely.
yeah, using
Yep.
the seasonal or lunar calendar for that is helpful.
I would say it's this, yeah, absolutely. It's the same thing of the fact that everybody needs rest. And it's like, especially if you do, your summer season is the time when you're productive and you're working hard, and then your body just needs rest. There's always that. Like, did you read that book, Wintering, by, oh, what's her
No,
name? Um,
someone else just told me about that book though, so I definitely need to read it.
Yeah, I mean, it's like it's such a nice word to use for that as well, because it's like it can be a psychological wintering as much as it is a seasonal one of like if you're going through a tough time in your life, you can just winter, like just go into hibernation a little bit, take care of yourself. But it can also, I like to think of it, especially in the season after Samhain, where that's the winter period of just like it's okay. Like I'm wintering, I'm gonna be a cozy little hermit and not stress.
Yeah,
And yeah, that book is all about the psychological aspect of it, of a woman going through a difficult period and how she comes out of it because she gave herself the opportunity to rest.
That's
So I
great.
think it's
Rest has
even
been
more
a big
important.
topic lately. I've written a few posts on rest recently, and I got a lot of engagement with it because I think so many people, especially women, are coming back to like, yes, I need rest. Like I've been going
Yeah.
for decades, and my body is telling me to slow down, and I'm finally listening. So I think that's such an important
Yes.
message that we can learn from the seasons.
Yep, absolutely. Well, and I think I don't know if this is accurate. I think it is. It's scientifically, it's that women also are on our 28-day cycle and men are on a 24-hour cycle. And
Mm,
so in that way, men rest. It's like they almost go through that, although it's not hormonally the same, but it's still the fact that their rest period happens within 24 hours in the same way. And so it's like, yeah, it's just understanding yourself, your body, and whatever that looks like, and knowing what that, when you need that, and prioritizing that for yourself.
definitely. Yes. And I'll include a link to that book, Wintering, and then also any posts that Jess has about the different pagan festival or Celtic festivals, I'll include in the show notes as well.
Yeah.
I can also include some of my posts on lunar, honoring lunar cycles and what that looks like. You can start really simple. The way that I see it is with a new moon, it's time for setting intention. So new moon is when the sky is dark, the earth is between the sun and the moon, so the earth's casting a shadow on the moon, so it's a completely dark moon. And that's it, like fertile ground for planting seeds. So it's a energetically potent time to be setting intentions, is new moons. And usually it's for about 24 to 48 hours from the time that the new moon occurs. That is that like energetic window that you'd want to be doing that. And then as the moon's getting bigger, then you start to see the waxing crescent getting bigger and bigger, moving towards the full moon. That's a good time if you think about it as like kind of spring, or maybe more like summer
Mm-hmm.
energy, where you're starting to take action uh, based on your intentions. You set an intention. Now I'm starting to put action in, and you're starting to notice things that are happening. So you're like watering and feeding the plant. It's starting to grow. And then once you reach the full moon, that's a good time to celebrate. That's a good time to reflect. So you're reflecting on what you've harvested so far. You're reflecting on your intentions and the actions you've been taking, any kind of like realignment that you want to be making. That's a good time to do that, to reflect on that. And then you also just want to be celebrating, like, here's what I've harvested so far from my intention and action. And then as the moon starts to, sorry, I might have said waning before and I meant waxing. As the moon starts to wane, which means it's getting smaller, the crescent's getting smaller, that's a good time for releasing. So you're releasing the things, whatever is part of your intention that you're no longer going to be holding on to. You're releasing any lessons or any regrets or any resentments, like just like shedding. And then that brings you back to the new moon again, so that you have a blank canvas because you've released everything, so you can plant seeds again. And I like to use that lunar cycle as a monthly intention setting, but it fits inside seasonal cycles.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a group now I call Coven, that is a bunch of women who are creators, and we work together, and I've just kind of set up my own little circle to set seasonal intentions. And then there's usually about 3 lunar cycles in that season. And those are just like smaller subsets of that larger seasonal intention. And then you can also set the annual intention. I like to use the winter solstice for that.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of like New Year's, because winter solstice has a really cool, I don't know if you know about this, the ritual with the 13 wishes. Have you ever practiced
I
that?
just read something about this recently. No, I don't know anything about it, but I just kind of
It's
came across it.
it's really cool. I'm probably going to host a live workshop for winter solstice this year. Basically, on the
Cool.
solstice, you write down 13 wishes, and then every day from I think it's from the winter solstice until I think maybe the beginning of the calendar year, you burn a different wish, and each one's supposed to represent a wish for each of the 12 months. And then the 13th wish you hold on
Yeah.
to, and that's when you're responsible for. Everything else you're releasing to the universe.
Cool. That's awesome. I
I
love
really
that.
like that. Yeah. So stay tuned. I'll probably host a winter solstice workshop for that. But yeah, so
Sweet.
it's cool how you can use these lunar cycles to celebrate, set intentions. You can dabble into the Celtic festivals that Jess was naming. Jess, what would you say for someone who's beginning and wants to start honoring these things? What would you say are like some small steps they could take to start diving in?
Yeah. I mean, if you want to do Celtic specific stuff, I would say start looking up what Samhain means, which is Samhain, which is why it's confusing, but it's Halloween essentially. So we just finished Lunasa, and that was the big festival. So if we're leading up to this, Halloween is so well known as it is, and you can just dig into like what are the origins of these practices, because I was so surprised at how similar they are to how they were celebrated by the Celts. So I even just use AI for this as like a helpful research tool of just asking questions, because you can just kind of go down the rabbit hole in a way of a teacher of saying, what do we know about this? Okay, tell me more about that. Oh, who was that deity? And then give me some book recommendations as to like how I could, you know, dig into this more. So I think that's a cool tool. I can link some books that I use as well, that are related to the Celtic world. So if you're more interested, you can read those as well.
Great. Love that. Using AI for a research assistant is so helpful because, like you said, you can interact. Um,
Yeah,
let's
it's
see.
great.
So, if you want to get started on like lunar or seasonal cycles, the first thing I would recommend doing is if you have a Google Calendar, you can actually add the lunar cycle into your Google Calendar so that it actually shows up in your calendar when I think it just does the quarter moons, so new moon, full moon, first quarter, last quarter. But that was
Yep.
one of the first things that had me start paying attention. So I'll include notes and instructions on how you can do that. And then I would start with a new moon. If you're ambitious, start with the new moon and full moon practice. So put it on your calendar and then keep it really simple. Create sacred space, light a candle, have a journal. For new
Yep.
moons, write down your intention. For full moons, write down like what you've harvested from your intention and what you're reflecting on and celebrating. Again, I have posts about all this, so I'll link them with instructions and guides for you. If that's too much, just start with the new moon. Just practice once a month. New moon, you could do a 5-minute ritual where it's just I light a candle, I write my intention, and that's all I do. I post it somewhere to
Yep.
keep it present for myself. So start small. And then, yeah, Jess and I both write about these things. So feel free to subscribe to us if you haven't already. And anything else?
Oh, I think it's like it's such a personal thing, but it's also such a beautiful shared experience, and it's cool to find people that also reflect this. And I think if you're just starting out in these practices, you can find so many beautiful women that are doing it and can help guide you, whether or not it's us or someone else. But I'm just so happy that people are digging into this again. It's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, Patrick just said light a fire in your backyard. Totally. If you can bring fire into it, then all the better. Make sure you're safe. But
Amazing. If
yeah,
it's a candle, if it's a bonfire, whatever it
yes,
looks like, that's awesome.
yes. I just wanted to say too, like having, and I started really small with this and was, messing around and didn't know what I was doing, but having a few years under my belt now, wow, it's been like 6 years of creating sacred space and ritual, which was really missing from my life. I felt like this was a really great way to bring that
Mm,
sacredness into my life and connect more with nature,
yeah.
which I think we're all craving right now. And I find that when my husband and I are dealing with grief or difficult emotions, like I can like whip up a ritual for us so fast of like whether that's releasing something, grieving something, setting intentions. Like, so the more you practice this, the more you'll feel comfortable to kind of remix your own whatever comes to you. And then something
Yeah.
Jess talks about that I really like is researching your own roots. Like there's so many
Mhm.
different ways to practice these things across cultures, and it's interesting how much alignment there is. So
Yeah.
whatever your cultural heritage is, look into it and see if there's already something that you can connect with.
Totally. Yep. I even saw a woman that pointed out to me of like, even if you can do genealogy or wherever you are, what would they have done to grieve? Like, what was a practice that they did for that? What was the celebration that they did when they came together? I mean, those are things that people still do practice in those parts of the world. So I think you can start where it's still something that exists, which is
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, and then mark your calendars for the solstices and equinox for a year, spring, summer, winter, fall, and you can start looking up different ways to celebrate those too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. You've got all kinds of holidays. There's so many holidays to celebrate. It's
Yes,
awesome.
exactly. All right, great. Well, unless there's anything else, Jess, I think I feel complete with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for
Great.
having me. This was so much
Yeah,
fun. I
thanks for
love talking
coming.
about
This
this
is so
stuff.
fun. Thanks for the people who've joined live. Jen, Sheena, Trisha, Pamela, Charlie, and Patrick. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks.
All right.
Appreciate it.
See everybody.